Hello and welcome to episode 25 of Illuminating Rounds. Martin, how you doing?
I'm fine. Is it really 25 already?
It is 25 already. That's
amazing.
Yeah. Did you think we'd get to 25 all those months ago?
I didn't think I'd lived to 25 at one point.
There was a moment, wasn't there? There was a moment. But anyway, well done for being back with us. We're glad. Okay, so what are we up to this week?
So very little ASL wise, actually. I had to put Martin on hold on Monday because I was meeting somebody. We were going for a long walk last night. It was really nice, but it wasn't ASL. So yeah. Oh, I've been sorting out my counters big time, and
Okay.
I mean, I've really fallen behind with sort of counter storage and things like that. So I've even had Hackapali. I can't remember how many years I've had Hackapali. I finally cut the counters out and put them in boxes. I'm going to order some new Racco, and I'm going to do the French and stuff like that. Very, very pleased to have, courtesy of Martin Mayers, I had to buy it off him, the new French box. Really, really looks good.
I thought
really
Martin Vicker.
Sorry?
Wasn't it Martin Vicker?
No, that was Martin Mayers.
Oh, okay.
Martin Mayers sold me his copy. He had a couple of copies. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, very nice. The French for me are causing all sorts of angst because I don't know whether to take apart all my French. You know, they're sitting very nicely. They're sharing a racco with the Italians. They're being very well behaved, and they fill it nicely. And now they've grown exponentially.
Well, there are 3 French now, aren't there? 3 orders of battle for the French now.
Yep. That's right.
So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to dedicate an entire Racco box to the French.
Yep.
And see if I can squeeze them all in one. So I'm going to order some new ones on eBay.
Right. I guess you might say Hitler had problems with the 3 French, and we had problems with the 3 French.
Oh, dearie me.
Did you like that?
Boom, boom.
Didn't even rehearse that, did we? Didn't even rehearse that one.
Awesome,
well,
awesome.
Okay.
You know what? I think that Dinant campaign game looks very juicy.
And we are going to play it. We are scheduled to play it.
Yeah.
You are taking the Germans.
Yes.
We're going to play that at some point, maybe soon.
Very soon. So I spent like a lot of time trying to get my head around the rules for the boats and the pontoon bridges and things like that. And you'd be very pleased to know I don't really have a clue.
So
how they work properly.
The Dennis brothers are documenting a campaign on Game Squad, and it looks fascinating. It really does look fascinating. And you know, the French defenders seem to be hammering the boats. The Germans are struggling across the river, but they're amassing. It looks brilliant.
And this is on Game Squad.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have to look that up. I hadn't seen that.
I shouldn't have mentioned it.
No, you shouldn't have done. That's going to be a big help to me.
All right. Well, okay. So what we got today? Today we're going to talk about cold crocodiles.
Yes. In fact, we're going to have a friend talk about cold crocodiles.
We are indeed. Yes. So we have our superstar co-commentator now, our neutral commentator. You know him, I know him through the funny stuff he posts on basically the forums and the mailing list back then. He's a published author in the journals. He's a very, very funny guy. So Tom Rapetti is our
brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know if we deserve him. Our level of play is probably not what he's used to, but we have listened to his commentary and it's excellent. We would love feedback as to whether or not it works, whether or not you think, you know, we desperately want him on video. We haven't got him on video yet. We've got his audio, but we haven't got his video. If you like him, let us know. Let Tom know. If we can improve any way, we will. You know, if you don't like him, let us know as well. Don't be shy. You know, it's not a problem. I think Tom's as nervous as we are in terms of, you know, it's our play, and Tom's worried about his commentary. So I'm looking forward to playing along with him. And it gives another angle, doesn't it, to the game?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're, you know, I think you've said many times that, you know, we're not, you know, by no means, you know, top flight players, and it's really interesting to listen to somebody analysing our play and pointing out our kind of obvious blunders, really.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the time, I want to say while I was listening to his commentary, I was thinking, oh, but But actually, he's right. He's right. I want to say it, but there's nothing, you know. So every now and again, I just want to.
He's got a bang to rights, hasn't he? So.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. So I've got to look forward to that. We've also got a little segment from Toby talking about machine gun nests and how to best place those. So that'll come up in a second. If you have any questions for Toby, just fire them across. He's offer still to help out our Patreon. Potentially at the November tournaments in Blackpool is still open. We've had a little bit of interest on that already, but if there's more interest, let us know. And we're going to talk about our top 5 journals. So, Martin, top 5 journals. Now, it's hard to choose from.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's hard to choose from, wasn't it? We went through them all. Yeah. I think it goes without saying the journals are excellent. To an episode, an issue, every one of them has some either great articles, some fantastic scenarios. They are, amongst the highest quality publications of any gaming source I've ever read.
Yes,
it's thanks to contributors, whose names you'll recognise. J.R. Tracy, Mark Piktovich, Ian Daglish, who we'll mention again. The late Ian Daglish, but those contributions are stunning. They're excellent, and I think I've seen it before. The MMP have said they would produce more journals if more people were to submit articles or scenarios. So really? I guess it's not a case of them being lazy or whatever. They just need content. So if you have an idea for an article or some content, absolutely send it over to MMP.
Yeah. There is definitely those two sides to journals, isn't there? There's excellent, they're great articles. There's also, some of the best scenarios designed, anywhere, are published through them. You also get some quite nice artwork, and of course it's also a kind of a, almost like you're in a little club because you kind of read about the latest, what's coming out, what's coming down the line, and you get the errata, don't you, published in and things like that. So it's I think it kind of ticks a lot of boxes for somebody in the hobby.
Absolutely. I liked the artwork so much of, I think it was Journal 5 and Journal 7. I actually bought the prints, so I've got them somewhere. I'm going to get them framed at some point. Every time I go to get them framed... Sorry?
Not Prince Andrew.
No, the prints of them.
Prince.
We can't talk about Prince Andrew. But these ones here and this one here. The problem I have is the framing pictures is actually quite complicated. You get the websites and they ask you, okay, measure it, and I measure it, and then it starts asking how much is the border and how much is the visible area of the picture, and it's too many numbers. So every number I go to do it, and then I stop, but I will get it done, and we'll put them somewhere here at the back or whatever.
That's a great idea.
And talking of artwork as well, I should mention this. So many of you will know Charlie Kibbler, who had an accident where he broke his arm, had some very big unforeseen medical bills. There's a GoFundMe page up to set up to help Charlie to pay those. It's the price of medical bills in America is sometimes crazy. So obviously there's a GoFundMe for that, and you can find that. I'll put a link below perhaps to that.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
But also, I wanted to shout out to Don Petros, who is also a ASL artist. He does a lot of the board artwork and maps and things like that. And he was doing a silent auction for 4 different boards. And I managed to win one of those boards. So somewhere in my sister's house right now is the original artwork for board 46. She doesn't know what she's sitting on, let me tell you. Let's keep that quiet because...
Have they got a nice safe somewhere very secure to keep that?
Armed guard, Martin. It's armed guard. And just worried is I said to her, just put it somewhere safe. It'll be fine. I'll come and pick it up when I can go to America again. And she's having her kitchen remodeled right now. So she's like, it's the worst time for her to kind of keep something precious. But anyway, so when I get that over, so Don, I should mention Don has donated all that money across to Charlie as well. So Don, thank you. I don't expect you're watching this, but if you're interested in trying to get hold of some original board art for ASL, I think that's a pretty neat collector's item, and I'll frame it as well, and we'll get it somewhere up on a wall at some point. So that's pretty exciting. All right, back to the journals.
Number 5, then.
Number 5. I thought journal number 10 is.
Okay.
Is
Why
number
did we
5.
choose that one? Why did you choose that one?
So, interestingly, 10 was the first one, and I didn't particularly like this, by the way. So this wasn't any of the reasons. So 2 things I didn't like about it was they took the scenarios out of the journal and they turned it into glossy print. So those 2 things are the 2 negatives. I love flicking through a journal and then looking at the scenarios as well.
Do you know what? I wasn't sure if I agreed with you when we discussed this a couple of weeks ago, but actually today, going through the journals to try and decide which ones I like the best, I loved flicking through and seeing the scenarios there. And when I got to number 10, I've got to go and look in a file somewhere, a folder somewhere, and it's just not the same. I agree. I think it's really nice to have them.
Now, the flip side to that, the flip side is when you are playing a scenario from the journal, it was a pain to have the journal open at the same time. It doesn't stay open. So I can see both arguments for it, and
I agree. I think the trick is scan them and print them out. Put them in. Have them in that way. I think.
So number 10 I thought was really interesting because first of all I thought the scenario replay of Festa in Budapest was excellent. I think there's a really good scenario replay there. I thought that they'd upped the level of graphics a little bit. Everything seemed a bit sharper, a little bit kind of snazzy, a little bit more colourful. It kind of felt like it actually grown up a little bit in its presentation style. I'll talk a little.
That is the gloss look, though, is allowing them to be a lot more sharp.
That's fair. That's fair. 19 scenarios in the journal. A play time of 114 hours if you played them back to back. Just incredible, really. Just amount of effort. And they the scenarios as well, they noticeably increased in size from what had been the previous 5 or 6 years worth of journals as well. So they got a little bit bigger, which is quite nice to see. I think sometimes we can be a bit critical of the journals for having scenarios that are a little bit too small to medium-sized tournament size, and they kind of just upped it a little bit on there. And I also wanted to mention briefly about. I was going to get these up for a second. So Journal 10 as well. The most played scenarios from Journal 10, Rage Against the Machine was not only the most popular, also the second highest rated scenario. And the best one being Tropic Lightning. So there are some pretty good scenarios in there.
It also featured the Son of Squad Leader, didn't it? Scenarios
That's right.
At the back. And I remember me and you played one of those when you were in the flat.
That's right. Yep.
And the whole point of these is you don't know what force you're facing, and you don't know what your opponent's victory conditions are.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So there's a lot of fog of war, if you like. And that was fun. I remember enjoying that. I remember playing that with you and thinking that was actually quite a lot of fun.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. A little bit different.
Sorry.
Go on.
There's the article about the mistakes beginners make as well in this.
That was Mark Pitch's.
Robert Walke.
Oh, right. Sorry, I thought there was a Mark one as well there. That
there is a Mark one somewhere, but I'm not sure that it's in this.
Right. Okay.
I'm not sure if it's in this one, but the Robert Walke one is very. It is aimed at people who are new, but it's always interesting, I think, to read through these sorts of things anywhere. Anyway, it just gives you some basic points on snipers, how to protect yourself from them. How to little tricks on how to see if you've got line of sight without sort of taking the thread out. Stuff about timing. Actually, sort of stuff that Toby's been talking about on a lot of those little sessions that he's been doing. Just how you can basically time an attack to make sure that you're going to get to your objectives in good time and things like that.
Right.
They're very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Certainly for a beginner, but I think, for any of us to read over and read some of those basic things.
Yeah. They had Spencer Armstrong's article about the chronology of war with the calendar. Seemed really interesting. And I couldn't find the chart. I don't know if it was printed on a separate piece of paper somewhere that I've now taken out. But that's one of the downsides, I guess, to when you take the content out of the magazine. Now I've got to try and find that somewhere and figure out where that is. But pretty good.
There's another interesting thing in 10, which is the close combat simulator.
Yes.
Now, the close combat simulator, I think, is like a sort of a more modern version of what is it Robert Meldrew used to do when he did the detailed analysis and the generals of things.
Yep.
And that was really, really interesting. But it was it was very much about sort of spreadsheets and tables and things like that. Whereas this is like really visually well demonstrated. So it just basically runs through what are your odds of winning a close combat, depending on the odds and the possibility of an ambush. And it's just shown visually. You've got a picture of 1.5 squads, be 1.5 squads, and what's the probability of a result.
That's right. Really clever. With a nice set of summary at the end about kind of guidelines to what you should do. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So okay, good stuff. Love the cover as well, by the way. The cover's.
I was going to mention the cover. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just excellent, isn't it? Just excellent.
Yeah.
All right then. Okay, so
in place number 4.
Yep.
I selected issue number 9. That was me, wasn't it? Yeah, it was me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I think this as first off, I mean, like an absolute highlight is that it has Suicide Creek. So you've got a hassle map and a really interesting sort of campaign game, which I played with a good friend Ian Willie some time ago.
Yep.
Really, really fascinating campaign game. But what stands out to me, other than that, and from this, is the articles. There's a very, very big list of articles. You've got 2 articles about Banzai. Absolutely cleared the rules up for me. One of them's the art, one of them's the science of the Banzai. I think the science of the Banzai is about the rules. The art of the Banzai is about some tactical considerations. But after reading the science of the Banzai, I kind of had a very good understanding, much better than I had before, on how you do human wave and Banzai attacks, and to apply the rules strictly accurately. You got another article on getting your feet wet, which goes through almost every aspect of water in the game. From literally explaining what that you can't go across all water hexsides, for example.
Right.
To have cross streams, to boats, and to landing craft, and it's pretty in depth. It's pretty detailed. It kind of goes through all of that. I was reading the article just the other day to remind myself of how to use boats and rafts for preparing for the the Dinant campaign game that we're playing against you. You got a Pick Cabbage article, which is quite lengthy. Last house on the left,
right?
With some very sort of practical tips on how to defend a building. And I think in our last Illuminating Rounds, I think Toby kind of made the point that can be one of the most difficult things for an attacker to do is to capture a building in a scenario.
That's right. That's right.
So many things there. Yeah.
It has the scenario whose name I probably dislike the most, the Art of Dying, which for some reason.
Yeah, you're funny about that.
I do.
I seem to remember we actually didn't play it because you found the name so upsetting.
Well, I mean, maybe that was one of the reasons. I don't know. It just seems like I haven't played the scenario. I mean, that seems like a harsh reason to not play a scenario, but yeah, I don't know. I can usually take most of them, but that one just seems a little bit. There was one in your eyes was Ugly Faces as well.
Yeah.
That we should play.
Definitely.
In fact, actually, I have played Ugly Faces, so I'm just going to check to see if it was against you or not that I played.
I don't remember playing it.
Okay, yes, it was. Yeah. So.
Oh, hang on a moment. Do you know what I hadn't realised? But this is where you've got. It's in this one that you've got the Arkan mini campaign.
Okay.
By Pete Schelling.
Right.
Circle of Doom, 3 for the third, and me, you definitely played them all 3.
Yep.
And Golden Pheasants.
Right. Yep.
And there's rules in here for it. It's a little bit like the Prokhorovka one. You play the 3 games. There's rules to lead you from one to the next.
Right. Okay. Yep. With you. Yeah. It's an excellent art journal. And you're absolutely right. I mean, there's some great articles. It's really good. In terms of, got high-rated scenarios, 6.46, pretty high. 25 scenarios, 166 hours worth of scenario play, average length 5.4 hours. So basically right in the middle there for the average lengths. But yeah, a pretty good journal. And I've played 11 of them out of the 25, so that's quite high for me from that point of view.
Yeah, I think one way or another we between us played virtually all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right, okay, good stuff.
So number
3.
Position number 3.
Yeah, position number 3. So journal number 3 was my choice. So this one has the Kursk campaign in it, which is just fantastic from a slightly different way of playing. It's a little bit like you talked about the Arkham tournaments or scenarios before. I love the fact that you get some scenario views as well. So a review of a scenario, so you can really that's just been released. So it really is quite a nice way of taking a good look at a scenario and then being able to play it with the scenario freshly printed. So you've got a nice, fairly new scenario, and then take a look at the review that people can put in. Yeah. What else do I like about number 3?
I quite like the way that, I often, although I am really interested in World War II military history, when I'm in ASL mode, I often not particularly bothered about reading the articles about history. But there's quite a nice article about the Norwegian campaign here, and it's reasonably short. And once you've read that, of course, this is the journal with about half a dozen scenarios set in Norway,
right?
And I think that's quite a nice touch.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree. I think Ian Daglish as well makes some nice articles in here, and just reminding how much he's sorely missed, really.
Absolutely,
some great articles about Bocage that he talked about there. And this is the time when the Bocage rules kind of changed from where they were in the first edition, and they kind of tidied them up and made them a lot easier to handle. And I think those of us who have forgotten the difficulty of Bocage too, even now, if you think it's more difficult, but it's actually a lot easier than it kind of used to be, isn't it? Really, it was a lot more tricky, and had kind of difficulties around how you actually implemented it. So they've tidied that right up. It's good to see Kurt Schilling still writing for MMP. Those are the days where.
Does he write something in this?
Yeah. There was. Does he? Oh no, maybe not. Maybe not. No, he doesn't. Yes, he does. Yes. Yeah, the View from the Mound.
The View from the Mound.
That's right. Yeah.
Kurt pontificates, and that's also collect for output. How the heck did that happen? I'm not sure what that's about. Something. Yeah. Yeah, but absolutely, it is nice to see. Yeah. To see the great man himself, the saviour of ASL. Exactly. Writing still, being involved in the hobby.
That's right. Good scenarios in here that we've certainly played. And it's the proper classic here. Third RTR in the Rain is one of the best journal scenarios I think that's ever been published. I think it's an excellent scenario. If you haven't played Third RTR in the Rain, go play it.
Yeah. So talking about just Ian Daglish for a moment. Such a tragic thing when he died a few years ago, in that sort of tragic accident. But he was working on, and in fact, I think I'd even seen being play tested some scenarios based on a Sea Lion, Operation Sea Lion theme. Now I know MMP were interested in publishing that, and I wonder if anything will ever come of that. Yeah. Now that he's passed away, it'd be quite interesting, especially living in East Anglia. Right. Because I'd love to see a campaign game where I could, rubble a few of my neighbours' houses. Really, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's nice. Great. Absolutely. I just think, in terms of Ian, what a lovely guy. I never got to play him. I certainly ruined one of his games when which I count. But when John O'Reilly was playing him, and I think I pointed out that John had cheated, and John instantly resigned after winning. I think, I'm sure Ian wouldn't have any of it. But what a nice guy. Sorely missed.
Very nice guy, a real gentleman, and actually a really good writer, because obviously his interest was military history. And he wrote several books, didn't he, for Pen and Sword or whatever.
Yeah, I've got one of his operational.
I've got a couple of them. Yeah, and they're actually really nicely written. Historians are not necessarily good writers as well, but he was a good writer. Very gentle, sweet, kind man.
Yes, absolutely sorely missed. And the hobby is worse off without him, isn't it? I mean, the level of quality of articles he wrote and the output. So sorely missed. But Journal 3, excellent, I think. Excellent.
I agree. So that takes us to position number 3.
Number two.
To number 2. And I have selected issue number 8.
That's right.
So, again, here we got lots of very, very interesting articles, very, very helpful articles, I think. You've got Crosstown Traffic, which is a detailed look at the rules for vehicular overrun. Now, I remember reading that. It's an incredibly dense article. It's very, very detailed. And I must have read it when this first came out. I learnt so much reading that. I probably need to read it again because I will have forgotten much of it. And then they've got a close look at Match Check Fire Brigade, which where a lot of these rules are come into play. J.R. Tracy and Brett Hildebrand write that. And Carl Nogueira, he wrote the one about the vehicular overrun. I think those two articles together are a really good introduction to kind of advanced play. So.
This is the one as well, the article I got confused with last time with Mark Piktovich's, where he talks about when bad things happen to new players.
The agony of defeat. This sounds like a scenario that you wouldn't play, doesn't it?
That's right. Exactly.
Yes.
But that was really good.
I'm not saying I didn't, but I remember you mentioning it,
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. It was really good. Good to see the preview of Hackapale that was coming. And that was quite nice to get a kind of look for that. And obviously we were playtesting this at the time, I think, so we were kind of aware of what was.
Well, this article by Mark Piktovic looks really good, actually. Very detailed, isn't it? I mean, things like how to make sure that you can route and with pictures and diagrams. Yep. That's nice.
Yeah. Now the other classic reason why Journal 8 is a good episode, a good issue. For those that have forgotten, there was a huge kind of uproar around when issue 7 of the journal came out, because the Bridge TM came along. So there was a bit of a question about whether people were going to get a -1 on a bridge in conjunction with everything else to turn it into a -3 shot if you were running down across a bridge. And it basically, everybody felt that all the bridge scenarios were suddenly unbalanced. What was going to happen? There was like the ASL world fell off its axis for a little while. Issue 8 came along and took all that away again and made the bridge -1 TEM go away. So yeah, I certainly remember that being a.
So is there not a bridge TM of -1 anymore?
I don't think so. They rescinded. Yeah, they rescinded the errata that instituted a -1 TEM for being on a bridge. So yeah, it's not quite as bad as being on a runway and stuff. But I remember arguing at the time. Well, it seems reasonable that a bridge is a pretty tough place to be taking.
I would have thought so. Yeah,
taking fire from. But
and you do get the protection if the shot comes in from the side, doesn't it?
Right.
You get the +1 hindrance from the or TM if you're in the hex.
Yeah, but there were certainly times where people were definitely playing with an extra -1 for bridge, and that was I remember being in tournaments where this was still a bit of an open issue, and people were saying, well, okay, are we playing this scenario, and if it's got a bridge, I want the -1, or I don't want the -1, or we're going to agree up front. But they took it away again, and we've all forgotten about that now, but it certainly was a big deal at the time.
Well, it makes a huge difference. I mean, it means you potentially -3 running across a bridge, doesn't it? So,
right, exactly.
And this has a really interesting scenario in it called Brigade Hill.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who originally published that? I always forget what it was.
It was Break Contact.
Now, the Break Contact pack, me and you played years ago, and we were doing a write-up about each of the 6 scenarios on Game Squad.
Yep.
Long time ago, just before this journal came out.
You're taking all the credit for Murray McCluskey's hard work.
I think it was us.
Well, okay.
He thought, let's have another look at this lot. This looks good.
Well, that's probably true. We played Mazkek Fire Brigade. I remember that scenario and a lot of these scenarios were reprinted from third parties. So Elephants Unleashed, Mazkek Fire Brigade, as we mentioned, break contact packs, Brigades Hill. There was a lot of these, and they basically took some of the best third-party scenarios, which was really good because I don't know whether some people only buy. I certainly remember some people only buy MMP or Avalon Hill kind of official stuff, and you don't want to take the chance of some people not producing very good quality scenarios, and in general an MMP scenario, an Avalon Hill scenario is a little bit more play tested perhaps than a third party one, and it gives it some kind of justification for and some visibility. So it was great to see that actually.
I know in the days when this came out, me and you would have more or less played, not necessarily against each other, but we'd have more or less played all of these.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
The Schloss Hemingstein, I remember playing. No, it wasn't against you. I remember playing it.
Yeah, Everything Is Lost we played.
Isham,
Bloody Boys,
tracks we played. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Pretty good in terms of the average rating. 6.35 is pretty good for the journals, and median length 5.1. Now, I was going to mention this. The median length scenarios peaked at the first journal about 6.4, and then kind of trickles all the way down to the most recent one, issue 12, where it's down at 3.7. Now, arguably that's because they reissued Gavin Take with that issue, and that's obviously a very small scenario. But it is interesting how they've slowly got smaller as the time goes on.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we'll see. And interestingly, the scenario ratings in general have gone up. So we've gone from Journal 1 being 6.19 all the way up to 7.04 for Journal 12. So in general, the scenario ratings are going up. And scenarios have, tended to start around, like I say, 6.5 hours down to, 5.1 for issue 11. But yeah, interesting. All right. So
to number one.
Number one, go for it, Martin.
Okay, so this one is the only journal that is so good they printed it twice. Issue 2. There was a lot of talk about some of these articles not being available to new players and things like that. And issue 2 has lots and lots of great stuff in it. But to me, the standout is the 2 articles right at the end by Matt Shostak and another one by Chaz Smith. Zen and the Art of Using Armour. Mm-hmm. And Armoured Tactical Examples. Armoured Tactical Examples is very short, actually, with some pictures, some explanation of some of the ways that you would go about attacking tanks, particularly tanks that might be more powerful gun than you.
Yep.
And Zen and the Art of Using Armour is very, very detailed. It's the textbook. It's the place to go, I think, to start learning about armour and how to fight with tanks.
Yep. Yeah,
I think that's why this was reprinted. I think probably was because of those 2 articles more than anything else.
That's right. They also took this. There's a lot of this that came from, I think it was the Hell on Wheels pack. So that article may have come from there. And I know that Mersenhausen Zoo came from there as well, and there was possibly some others as well. But there's some really, really good big scenarios in here. So Mersenhausen Zoo being one of them.
Yes, of course.
I know Oh Joy was another big one. Inhumane. A lot of people played, and Panzer Graveyard. Panzer Graveyard is probably the most popular from that pack. Siam Sambor, I remember playing. These are some really strong scenarios, and I keep saying this, but I wouldn't mind just being locked in a cottage with a couple of ASL players and just with one journal and just play the whole thing through.
Well, maybe when lockdown is over, we'll do something like that.
Yeah.
And feature it.
Yeah, I think because unlike a normal module that you kind of can get burnt out a little bit by the same sides or the same.
They're so
maps.
varied, aren't they?
That's right. Yeah, everything's so different, and yeah, it's thrilling. The articles are excellent in Journal 2. You're absolutely right. There was a couple of printings of it. I remember being a bit of a. I mean, it was. I think these were going for like $150 or something. I think you were paying for a Journal 2. Interestingly, the scenarios themselves, again, high rated, 6.55. Total playing time of 200 hours. So it's quite a lot of work to get through all of these. There was a lot of caves I remember as well, and they did
a caves article.
That's
There's
right.
also the original comprehensive route example by our favourite Tom Rapetti.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
What a
that's been
writer.
adopted as a part of the rules now, isn't it? It's
It
officially in the
has.
rule
Yeah.
book.
We should have to ask him the backstory of that. I'm sure there's a story about how he got that article together and what happened. He's probably living in his gold-plated house and his rocket car
And
now.
one of my favourites, actually, they also have an article called Jump Training. Simon Spinetti. I don't know Simon Spinetti, but I find the jump rules really, really oddly difficult because although there's nothing complex in it, there's so many sort of stages. I find my brain isn't quite big enough to kind of like hold them all in at the same time. So I kind of have to have a sort of checklist if I'm doing that. But actually, that's exactly what this is. This article is exactly that.
Yep.
Pre-game, this is what you have to do. Rally phase, this is what you have to do. Defensive fire.
Yep.
And it's a really kind of list of official scenarios that involve jumps as well, parachute jumps.
And obviously,
I think an underplayed, the impression I get, underplayed aspect of the game. Yeah. And I think you should definitely do a parachute jump sometime in Illuminating Rounds.
Definitely. We should mention Kakazu Ridge is the kind of like the feature point of Journal 7, issue 2. Sorry. And obviously we talked about issue number 9 with Suicide Creek. These are quite nice articles around a particular battle. It's quite nice to have a journal that focuses on a particular core kind of concept and then springs out with a little bit of condiments of different nationalities and everything. So good stuff. Excellent. So
amazing stuff.
Love the journals. Love the fact that we get such a great article. Thank you to MMP and everybody who contributes. I think we have a better hobby because of articles and magazines like that. So
absolutely,
for everybody involved, thank you. Shall we hear Toby now talk about machine guns? Okay, all right, here we go. Here's Toby, and what do you do with machine guns?
So the question I've been asked this episode is how best to set up machine gun nests. And I suppose the first thing I'd say is ask the question, what is a machine gun good for? It seems to me it's basically extra long-range firepower, possibly with rate of fire. Its unique selling point are fire lanes, the ability to maintain fire lanes. And so I suppose I would say that fire lanes should be one of your main thoughts if you're the defender. And fire lanes are lovely through grain and brush, and marsh for that matter, but you never find people struggling through marsh much. But in the right circumstances, fire lanes are superb, and particularly sort of light machine guns. And that's often where they find most use, is on nice little fire lanes. It should also be said that with light machine guns, sometimes you'll want to actually use them to effectively dummy something like a Piat or a bazooka or a Panzerschreck, especially if you don't have dummy counters. Having that, knowing that a unit has a support weapon, your enemy won't normally know what that is. And therefore, sometimes you won't actually set up a light machine gun to use its advantages as a light machine gun. It'll basically be there to put fear into enemy armoured fighting vehicles. And of course, machine guns can attack AFVs, lightly armoured ones. So sometimes you may be thinking about them in an anti-tank capability, basically, which again would change your setup. The big disadvantages of machine guns are their weight if they go over 3 portage points, and the fixed covered arc rules for mediums and heavies. And with medium and heavy machine guns, it goes without saying, often you'll find it useful for them to be higher up, so they have a wider range of fire and can interdict enemy movement more. Wherever you put the machine gun, be careful about the ability of the enemy to freeze your machine gun, whether it's its ability to make normal shots or maintain a fire lane. by coming into your hex, either in bypass or actually into the hex, and freezing you for triple point blank fire restrictions. So, there's ways and means of minimizing that possibility. So bear that in mind. But to be fair, I find that, the typical machine gun with many issues is the Russian medium, which weighs 5. There was a huge difference between a machine gun that weighs 3 portage points and one that weighs 4 or 5, because you cannot route away with a heavy machine gun, which is why I am often loath to place heavy and medium machine guns, heavy ones, ones over 3 portage points, in sort of forward positions, because in my experience they never get back. They weigh such a ton. So actually I quite like placing mediums, particularly heavy 4 portage point or 5 portage point mediums, in what I call point defense positions. And I suppose the typical one would be an internal factory hex, so that as someone comes adjacent to you, then you unleash the medium. And there's nowhere to route to anyway, so it's sort of a stand and die defense, just like being 1 hex back from the crest of a hill. Those sorts of positions are quite useful. And of course you give up the ability to interdict an enemy's movement as they're coming up to your point defense. But as I say, you also don't have to then worry about, I've broken and I'm leaving the medium, and are you going to send someone in to get it? The point defense is very useful for Russian mediums. And of course, German mediums and American mediums weigh 3 portage points anyway, so they're much easier to defend with. It's the heavy ones, and all heavy machine guns, that you have to think always, when you're placing them, always think, well, what happens if I break? And those are my sort of immediate thoughts on machine gun placement. I hope that's useful.
That was pretty good. I have never used a light machine gun as a dummy Panzerschreck before, Martin.
No.
How about you?
And I think one of the things I'm learning with Toby is just how sneaky you can be, even without hip and concealment counters. Yep. And it's an intrinsic part of his game. I mean, to me, I'd be thinking, right, I've got a light machine gun, that's a key weapon. I've got to be using that to, lay a good fire lane or something like that. Right. I get that. But of using it even before the game starts as a pretend Panzerfaust is genius.
Yeah, and it's a key point, wasn't it, about making fire lanes through grain and stuff like that? That's the kind of key thing that
that's where they really come into their own, I suppose.
Exactly.
I suppose they still don't get the. Of course, they wouldn't be in the open anyway, would they? So no, it's completely unaffected by grain. Yeah.
Pretty good. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about Coal Crocodiles. Martin, we've played it once before. I obviously played it. I've banged on about it enough times. My first ever game, and I played against you as well. So you've only played this once, I think.
Just one time, very very early on in our acquaintance,
right,
or friendship, I suppose. I could promote you. Absolutely, yeah, just once, long time.
All right.
Ago.
Well, let's see if we'll be friends or acquaintances after this. Let's go. So, do you want to talk a little bit about your setup and talk about
Yes, certainly. So, I mean, a lot of the stuff that's up front, particularly on board 24, are actually dummies. I know that Dave can be is not often very aggressive in these sorts of situations. So I felt reasonably safe setting up a lot of dummies forward and thinking he'll stop and smoke them and things like that. Mm-hmm. Machine guns and things are further back, so 23, N9 and 10, O10, where the kind of the heavy machine guns, the medium machine guns are. There was a mistake in the setup. I should have set up a half squad somewhere ready to run across the bridge and collect the buildings on the other side. I think I didn't really quite twig that they weren't really mine at the beginning and that I needed to run something over and try and get them.
So we should talk about the victory conditions. So it's a straight CVP fight, but stone buildings count as 4 victory points for the controlling side. I have counted these buildings so many times. I think there are 22 stone buildings in total.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Every time I count it, I get a different number. So I mean, there's that.
Yeah.
And obviously, 4 of them are not controlled by the Germans because they can't set up on this side of the canal.
All of the rest of them, most of the rest of them are controlled by the German player, aren't they? I think there are 3 that are technically neutral on the what would you call that? This is the west side of the river.
Right, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So
you're
the
going
ones
to pick up pretty easily.
Exactly. These are not in your setup area, not in my setup area.
Yeah.
So unless you charge forward, you'll be letting me have those.
Yeah.
So the classic Cold Crocodile setup is that I come on with 4 decent tanks. You've got 2 hidden 88 anti-tank guns somewhere. And then, just as I'm kind of struggling, I've got some OBA to try and help me get you out of these buildings. Just as I'm kind of struggling, my Crocodiles come on and, in theory, will try to blow away anything that stands in their path, apart from the 88s, and that's the big problem. Obviously, it's I think it's 1944. Is it 45? 44?
Yeah. There's a Panzerfaust, and obviously 44. Everybody's got Panzerfaust as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get 2 smaller tanks that come on as well from the top of the board to try and fight off the horde. We can voluntarily abandon vehicles, so it might be a...
So that became my default plan, was to abandon the vehicles and grab the buildings. Yeah.
Exactly. All right, okay. So let's hear Tom's... let's hear Tom's views on the game.
Okay.
Hello everyone, this is Tom Rapetti providing the neutral commentary for today's match. Those of you that have met me may wonder what the British accent is for, as I was born in Brooklyn, but Dave assures me that it is a part of Brexit that all British productions like this should have an entirely British cast, so we're trying to get a fast one through, and I hope you'll all play along. On to the scenario. Cold Crocodile. Oh, you know what, Dave? This is not going to work. I'm just going to go with my normal voice. Cold Crocodiles. It's a great scenario. I have played it once before, which I don't know if you're like me, but once you've played a scenario once, you are about 800 times more able to analyze it and understand what might be going on. So that's a plus. I don't know who's playing what side, whether Dave or Martin are the Germans, so that'll be interesting. And I also don't know where the hip guys are, so that'll be a surprise to me as well as you. But I am very good at criticizing other people's play, and I think I'm also a little cheaper than Toby Pilling. So the expenses for this production will be less than if it involved Toby. Dave tells me he's going to pay me in something called pence, which I don't know what that is, but since that's the vice president's name, I assume it's got to be a lot of money. So I'm very excited about this. So let's go on to the board here. This scenario looks really nice in Vassal. There's one thing to note, that by SSR2, all buildings are only ground level. So those of you with sharp eyes might see that there are some stairwells on the board, but those actually aren't there. Everything is ground level here. Looking at the German setup then, looks perfectly grisly. I'm sure you can look at the big stack in 23010 and like me assume that that's the 9.2 with the HMG. You know, it's probably the best place to put them. They don't really have to go anywhere in this scenario, just stand there and shoot. There's good route paths, and they're certainly going to be involved in the action because they are right near the only bridge. I am a big fan of fire lanes, so I really hope we see an HMG fire lane out from 010 all the way to 23AA10. It doesn't really do much to cross the British line of advance, but it might catch the Brits by surprise, and it's always lovely to see something like that. On the other side of the board, it looks like 24R4 is the 8-1 and MMG combo. That's a little more conservative than I would like to be, because I don't think they're going to have a lot of influence on the start of the game. I would rather see them in 23v3, where they could still make it back to the middle of town if they want, because remember, the British reinforcements are coming on the west side of the board, which is the bottom of your screen on turn 4. But at least from 23v3, they would have a little bit more to say in the beginning of the game. So, you know, those are just nitpicks. There's really nothing major, but I am good at nitpicking, so I'll continue. Something I'd like to see is somebody in 23v6, that wooden building there, even just a dummy or even just a half squad, but somebody to threaten to move into the big stone building in Y7 on German turn 1 and throw off the British timetable on that side. You know, it might be unexpected, and if it's a dummy, you're not investing a lot of effort there, but certainly I think the British would have to pay attention to that, and that's really all you want to do is give the other guy a lot to think about. These are all aspects that make the game replayable, and that's part of what I'm here for, is to provide some alternate thoughts on how these guys are playing it. On the British side, I'm just looking at the setup like you guys are. I don't see any riders on the British AFVs, and to me that seems like a wasted opportunity. You know, they have a long way to go on turn 1. They do have some morale 8 units, which stand a pretty good chance of surviving a bailout morale check, and all of the British AFVs have turrets, so you know they could scream across those first 10 hexes and waggle their turrets. I don't know what the British term for it, but around Denver, where I live, I like to say it's a waggle. But yeah, knock those infantry off, and assuming they survive, you've got some instant people close up to the Germans to do some scouting on turn 2, and again, if it's just half squads, then you haven't lost much if they break. So I would like to see that, but again, you know, more nits to pick, and that's my job. Otherwise, I'll be chiming in with comments after every game turn or so, let's get to it.
All right, so some good comments there from Tom. No riders from the British, predominantly because I was petrified of the 88s, and figured that, you know, if I put some riders on, you know, someone will get caught. But it does make an interesting point that, you know, I could have shot up to the edge of these woods here in on board 24, like X5, X4, almost not under fire at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I think that Tom's English accent was impressive. I mean, I wonder if could we have him as an honorary Brit, or do you think he's got to work on that a little bit?
All Americans are honorary Brits. Given we haven't quite let go yet.
Yeah, we'll be back.
Yeah, just let them get over their corona first. It's
okay.
So yes. Right. Absolutely. So some good points there. So let's zoom through. So I guess my strategy really here is to hit as hard as I can to start with. I did think Tom's point about you getting a guy up in V6 would have been quite interesting. I think making me fight for that top building would have definitely slowed me down a little bit. So let's see what goes on for my first turn. I should point out I popped off an OBA spotting round down here. It's obviously adjacent to all of your dummy or concealment counters. So if I plan to let it go there, I'm going to have to take another chit. My OBA observer is in GG1 on board 24. So so we can see most of the hexes there. Obviously, again, as Todd mentioned, everything's level 1, so the observer has some good lines of sight. So it's a bit of a rush to start with. very little. You show me a real unit.
Yeah.
There. And here I am, pretty much on for the first turn, with a little bit of advancing fire shots into the conceal guys. I get a nice double one, which turns out to be not a hit at all. It was an improbable hot hit that missed. Some advances. The 10-2 there is going for it. And that's it. So for me, turn one, I'm pretty happy. I haven't lost anything.
Yeah.
You're feeling okay, Martin, here?
I was feeling okay in as much as, you've you maybe could have got further, because I haven't got a huge amount up front to fire at you. So I guess at this point, I think we're both reasonably happy.
Yep. Okay. All right. Let's scoot through your turn. So a little bit of repositioning.
Yeah.
We get the OBA is cancelled.
You go red, don't you? That's right.
Yeah, to get a red chip for
It's so difficult with the OBA in this game as the Germans, because you feel so exposed to it. But your best defence is that extra card.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. Okay, all right. So let's listen to. That's the end of turn one on both our sides. Let's listen to Tom's comments.
All right, I'm back with end of turn one commentary. This is great. I get to just sit back in the corner and make comments and throw bricks at these guys, and I'm sure they're going to give me a lot to criticize. The biggest thing in turn one was when that concealed stack, there were 4 British counters underneath the top concealment marker, moved in bypass underneath the bottom side of CC9. So CC9, CC10 hex side is what they bypassed, and I really expected to see a free line of sight check from 2309 to either of those vertices in order to strip concealment, and if it was a good line of sight, then yep, that would have been a beautiful 7-down 3 shot to start the game. And it was just a simple thing to check for that line of sight to see if the concealment would have been lost. So that's a bad opportunity missed on the German side. On the British side, that was tough luck with the red battery access card with their OBA. I know there's a lot of concealed Germans out there, so it's easy to move your spotting round next to one and have to take that second card. I think that V2 would have been a better place to put that artillery request. There were no adjacent Germans there at the time, and you almost certainly would have gotten good value out of putting an FFE down in that area. So again, this is nitpicking criticism, but if you really want the OBA to come down, then don't risk that second draw, because even with the great British OBA draw pile that you get, that red card is just out there to kick you in the butt. So hopefully the Brits will be able to recover from that. It's shaping up to be an interesting second turn.
Okay, so Tom is absolutely right. We missed that line of sight. I guess you missed that line of sight. From 010 to CC9.
Absolutely.
Now, I seem to remember there was some big machine guns there. And yeah, you would have caught my medium machine gun, 2 squads, 9-1.
Yeah.
So I got off lightly. Did you think about it at the time, or did you just miss it?
I think I'd looked carefully at what that hex could see before the game started, and then when the game started, I missed it completely. You went around a place that I thought I probably could see you. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Yeah. Oh well. Okay. All right. So yeah, good spot from Tom. And you're right, Tom. I mean, in terms of absolutely the V2 is probably a better spot for the OBA. I think I was just keener on just trying to catch as many people as I could in woods, and if the accuracy was bad, then so be it. But okay, so let's go for turn 2.
Turn 2.
And let's see what's.
So this is where you start the smoke, don't you? And
that's right. Yeah. So more smoke coming out from my guys. We get the spotting round back out again. We get some shots from the Germans.
yeah,
We find some dummies.
mm-hmm.
We start to push forward.
Yeah. More dummies.
Yeah, more dummies. I finally see those 548s running away.
Yeah. That's very, very nicely placed. That squad in V8.
V8, yeah. I mean, luck, not judgment there, I think, from
yeah.
me. But, yeah. Okay, you start to pull back.
Yeah. Plan was really to have lost very little by now, but actually the casualties are already beginning to mount.
Right. I tried to put the AR back down here in R6. It's inaccurate. It lands here, and I've converted it. And what do I find is an 88, which is ridiculously lucky for me.
Yeah.
So that's where we are.
They survive, don't they? But they're revealed. Yeah.
Exactly that. So we have a little bit of routing.
Yeah.
You gain some concealment.
Yeah.
And let's hear from Tom.
Okay, lots to comment on turn 2. For the Brits, I think that was smart to do their smoke the way they did, not trying to put it directly on those concealed German defenders in the board 24 woods line. You'd get an extra +2 to hit modifier for trying to put smoke onto a concealed unit, so it was smart of them to fire the smoke just in front of the defenders. You still get the smoke you need without risking that +2 DRM. I'm not as fond of how the British infantry followed up, though. I think it would have been great to take a half squad and move him into X5 in the smoke there and even search, because as it was, there were no Germans around to hurt that unit, and if he wasn't even needing to go CX at the time, he stood a good chance of revealing both of those hexes as dummies, and then the remaining infantry could have followed up at will. And again, even if that hadn't worked out, if the searching half squad had rolled high on his search roll, you just bump scout these guys, trusting that the smoke is giving you the cover you need. So not a big fan of the assault moving, getting up to that tree line. Anytime the attacker is assault moving on turn 2, I think he's moving too slowly. I did notice that both the British AFVs, the Challengers and the Cromwells, have smoke mortars, which still gives you good smoke potential while being able to move as well. So that one tank that put the smoke in Y6, that was 3 hexes away from the tank, and he could have tried for the smoke mortar during the movement phase, and being buttoned up, it would have cost him an extra +1 DRM, so he would have needed a 7 to get that successfully. But if he had, you'd still get some smoke, plus you'd be able to move the tank, and that always feels good to me. I know that I'm a little over crazy on smoke mortars. I use them more than I should, and when in fact just doing what the British did here, standing off and firing smoke in prep fire, that works just fine, as we saw here. But it's interesting to see whether certain players take advantage of all the capabilities that they have available, and for some it becomes something that they like doing a lot more than they should. for me, I think a smoke mortar on a tank is a nice way to give you a good chance of smoke at 3 hexes out from the vehicle, while you're still able to reposition the vehicle. And again, I think it's nice to have a certain tempo to the attack, and moving vehicles is a good thing that helps that out. You know, in that vein, some armor on board 23 wouldn't go amiss. I know it seems likely that one might find an 88 somewhere up there, but hey, you got to find them one way or the other, and there are hull down positions that one can take there around the W8 or X8 area. But you know, one tank up there with the smoke mortar is a whole lot more effective than no tanks. So I think the way the British tanks are right now, it's a little more bunched up than I'd like. I think a little more spreading out would be good, but as the attack develops, I think it's inevitable that they are going to spread out there. So let's look for that. On the German turn 2, man, that was a great line of sight from 23X8 down the hex spine diagonally to 24R7 that stripped the concealment of the German 548 as they fell back. And I find myself wishing that the British medium machine gun had been back there, because, man, that was a great line of sight that could have really impacted the Germans as they fell back from that forward area. So, you know, that's the kind of thing that you get from being aggressive in your attack. You get lines of sight that the other guy doesn't necessarily expect, like that shot that eliminated the 548 as he fell back through 24T2. That loss could be telling for the rest of the game. The Germans only started with 9 squads, and they really need to be careful with marshalling their strength during this game, because it's 8 turns long, if I recall, and boy, you lose a squad completely like that, and that's bound to hurt down the line. In fact, I think, I'm not sure, but I suspect that if that squad had survived, he could have advanced back and held the line, the woods line around the T0, T1 area, and that would have made it possible for the Germans to hold the building in 23S9 for another turn. But without anyone there to watch that line from the British armor, I think S9 becomes a much less tenable position, and so you see the Germans falling back as far as they did. So interesting how, you know, one little domino falls and impacts the others here. Might have still been worthwhile to buy a turn and keep that 548 with its light machine gun in S9. You know, his own little private Alamo there. Certainly would have held that area up for another turn, but you know, the British armor can come up, and there are 2 of them that can easily make it there. And you know, I think it's just time for the Germans to be a little more careful, so I certainly approve of that move. The British OBA finding the 88, that was a ridiculous stroke of luck, so good on them. I still think the OBA should eventually wind up over by the bridge, because it's such a target-rich environment, and man, you know, they're gonna be there holding that bridge, so it's not like they're gonna be falling back away from the OBA. So you got a point defense there, and man, that's such a great opportunity to just start stonking them with OBA, even just smoke. But hey, hard to argue with a lucky scatter that finds the 88. So now that it's found, and it's a perfectly fine spot for it, let's see whether the British can prosecute it and get it out of the way before their reinforcements come on.
So it's good comments from Tom there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was very, very mindful about the OBA not wanting to risk another red draw chip.
Yeah.
And I think my feeling was at the time is just go for this kind of central point here where the lumberyard is. Try and take that on, and then swing up and around, and worry about it another time. Those guys just felt too difficult to to break, and I felt that even if I did break them, it would have enough time for you to perhaps re-bring them back up again. You'd rally them again. So I remember that thinking, well, I wanted to kind of push hard on the guys that were under attack.
Yeah. It's interesting. You talked about losing that squad as being such a crucial moment. It did kind of feel like it. I mean, the plan was never to lose anything at the beginning, and I was completely. I think I was aware of that shot you had, but there was that I wanted to get him back. I mean, I think the idea of you kind of leaving him up there and sacrificing him a turn later would in retrospect, would have been a better move with that unit.
Right.
But right from the beginning, the idea was not to lose any squads in this early part of the game. The first 3 turns, really, I was hoping to lose nothing.
Right.
But it doesn't work out. And he points out, there's really good points about how to be more, you being more aggressive. He would have played the British a bit more aggressively.
Yep.
And as it would have turned out, he would have made more progress because of that. Because actually, there wasn't very much in front of you.
That's right. Both things, isn't it?
The tanks as well. Just saying, it's okay to lose a tank to find the gun, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and also firing the smoke mortars in a movement phase rather than a prep fire phase seems obvious when you hear it, but at the time, I was thinking, okay, what have I got to do? Well, I want to cover my guys first, and then and then move. But absolutely right.
I guess the prep fire shot is a little bit more certain, isn't it, than the mortars?
Yep. And I think the feeling was if I didn't get prep fire, I didn't get the smoke, then at least I could move them anyway. And I was thinking, okay, well, that was, it kind of makes my mind up for me. And I'm still nervous about the other 88. Obviously, I know where one is, and I assume that was the one that's protecting against the crocodiles coming on. Now I'm thinking, okay, well, there's one somewhere I'm going to find at some point that's going to get these other ones.
Absolutely. But I must say, I'm going to become a much better player listening to Toby and Tom.
That's right. That's very true.
It's really, really nice. It's really informative. I mean, it's difficult, I think, to critique your own sort of play, as coldly. And I don't mean that in a bad way, as analytically, if you like, as having somebody else. It's very, very informative indeed.
Right. And the other thing about it is, if you beat me or if I beat you, the last thing I want to do is tell you how to play better, not because I want you to be a better player, because it feels a bit churlish or it feels a bit.
Absolutely,
So having someone neutral doing that is fantastic. So
it's brilliant, isn't it?
Tom, nitpick all you want. I mean, we've got thick skins. We've both
Absolutely.
been married.
It's rip us to shreds. We're happy.
Absolutely,
we love it. We want more.
All right, so let's have a look. So moving on to
turn 3.
Yeah, turn 3. So you've got my OBA finds your guys here, starts to break a little bit, not a lot. Breaks your leader in here. We have the mortar battle, so it's going to be the mortar against the anti-tank. Now, my feeling here is if I can get you to turn your gun a few times, and maybe it'll break, whatever. I'm quite happy to trust it and ping your mortar for a little bit. Ping your anti-tank gun with my mortar for a little bit. So the 8-0 goes up to try and help rally these guys, which will free up the 10-2. And so my attack here is really going to be see if I can get you to fire and then bring the 10-2 up. That's the idea. You don't fire on these guys, so I think, okay, I'll worry about that in a bit. I do the easy moves first. I get caught in the open here. You don't take the shot from. It's just an 8-0, and then you take the shot here. This is a good shot. Now, watch Hex T8 here. Is what I'm going to say.
Yes, I agree. You get away lightly, as always.
Yes, I do. I do get away with it. Up comes the tank. Scoots past T8.
So people may have guessed that there's a hip unit in T8.
There's a hip unit.
You afterwards disputed that you moved through it, but as you didn't. And I was thinking about firing a Panzerfaust at the buildings, but then the tanks hove into view, so I thought, well, maybe I'll hang on and wait for those. Yeah,
it's incredible, absolutely incredible. So I'm like some naive attacker that thinks, well, there's nothing here going on. I miscount my movement points there, so I realised I'd come back here. We're starting the tanks up here, and we're just getting them into position. just trying to get you to take a shot. I'm just petrified of any shot against my 10-2. Yeah. So here he comes.
Yeah.
He gets seen here. You take the shot.
Yeah.
I break the 10-2.
Yeah.
So this
he's
is
wounded, isn't he? Isn't my memory serves?
Yeah, I think he's going to get wounded at some point. I can't remember if it's a sniper that's going to get him or the squad under here get hit by your heavy machine gun.
Yeah.
And then the other 88 turns up.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm actually pretty happy because now I know where they both are.
Yes.
So you miss with the first shot.
And I'm happy I'm going to get that in a moment.
Yeah.
Very likely.
So a bit of routing going on. Jump into close combat.
Yep.
I think I grab another building here. So I'm just trying to roughly count how many buildings. I mean, don't worry too much about the numbers on the screen. So we have close combat up here, and I managed to eliminate you here. So that's another 2 points for the British.
Yeah.
And I get, I mean, I definitely don't take a 1.5 to 1, for granted, or 3 to 2, yeah. But it's, but I get lucky enough there. We get my guy gets wounded here from something. I can't remember what that was. Might be a sniper there. And now the gun starts to do gun things.
Yeah. It sorts the tank, but it doesn't have much luck against the infantry, I seem to remember.
That's right. And then you start to withdraw your guys here, which I was a little bit surprised about.
Yeah. Interesting to see what Tom says.
Yeah. So the OBA just sits where it is, just to basically just help me just take these buildings here. Mortar's still doing nothing. It's a bit of repositioning.
Yeah.
You're checking to see.
For concealment.
Yeah.
That's probably the end of the turn, isn't it?
Okay. All right. So here's Tom for turn 3.
Well then, that was gutsy for the British light mortar at the bottom of the board to stand pat and trade shells with the 88. Unfortunately, Martin wasn't playing on his side. He, I think, probably doesn't want the 88 to risk malfunctioning. But that light mortar has smoke, and I think he might want to worry about that eventually. So we'll see how that works out. That was tough luck for Dave with the 10-2 getting hit in 24W4. I don't think the leading British infantry there did him any favors. The squad that moved into V3 could have thrown some smoke and covered that move by the 10-2. Or even if that squad or the half squad who has the Piat had bump scouted into U4, they would have at least seen that that unit was real and was a 548 LMG and could have at least protected the 10-2. So you need to use smoke and bump scout in those situations. I am glad to see the British armor head onto board 23. I think that's a good place for them to help out. But yeah, whoa, that was a surprise to me to see the second 88 show up in Q2. I like it in 23010 where it has a long line of sight down the road. But hey, Q2 is an interesting place as well. Let's see that Cromwell in S10 didn't seem long for the world, and by gosh, it's gone. It's not a flamer, so that's not helping Dave attack, but we'll see. We can expect that 88 to have a lot to do in the coming turn. I don't know if Dave will be able to take it out quickly or whether he's just going to develop the attack slowly, but he certainly has lots of ways to hit that 88 from outside its covered arc. there's not a lot of infantry in the area, and the ones that are going to have to cross a road to get there to the 88 to take the crew under close combat. But with enough smoke, and certainly the British tanks have enough smoke there, yeah, I think you might want to try for it. So we shall see. On the German turn 3, I don't understand the 9-2's reposition. The British OBA is not threatening him where he is right now around the bridge, and I don't think going to L9 was really a useful place for him to be this turn. I understand not wanting to get into the row houses in the L7 and M8 where you really can't retreat without getting hit, but seems like J8 would be a fine spot for him. Or heck, I actually think just standing pat in the building in O10 and N9 was the right place for him to be. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You do want to spread out some, but that 548 LMG would go nicely around J8 to cover not only out to 23 R8 out in front of the bridge, but to keep an eye toward the British reinforcements that are about to come on. So we shall see how that goes.
Okay, so yeah, I mean it's an interesting choice. So why were you pulling the 9-2 back so far, Martin?
I think I was worried about your OBA and that being its next sort of focus.
Right.
I think that's what was going through my mind.
Yep.
Funny enough, after this turn, I think I kind of reposition it back again.
Okay.
I don't think I was happy with its position really.
Right.
I also thought there was a risk of things breaking. The front line. I mean, I think I felt like I had quite a lot of strength up front with a medium and a light, and that if anything breaks, it could go back and be reliably rallied. I suppose I was sort of thinking like that as well.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's see. So this time the crocodiles are coming on.
Yep.
So you can see that we're just going to bring one on a little bit to the left and one in the centre. Mm-hmm. The idea is to try and just swarm the 88, try and get it to churn its covered arc, and then hit it with the other one. So we'll see what goes on. First of all, we've got some rally stuff. The 10-2 comes back, and we do what do we have here? A little bit of there's a little bit of OBA, I think, that comes down. We have some prep fight. Oh, we forgot the second mortar, so we just gave it mantle to the guy furthest at the back.
Yeah.
As a way of friendly playing. Okay, all right. So we check in the try to get the whole get a hold of this centre board really coming into the mid game now. So start to push
I'm already
forward.
feeling very weak, very vulnerable. In the
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
mid board. I mean, yeah.
There's not a lot left, is there? Really, there was there's one squad in the big kind of building in the middle. You've got a squad here, we know, in Q6.
And that's it.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm feeling like I've just got to just do the usual stuff. I just push hard, try and get you to pull across your gun. You get a
Panzerfaust.
Yeah. So you Panzerfaust the tank here, but you kill your leader at the same time.
Yes.
Not a bad swap, but
no.
And now on comes a crocodile. So on he comes, and he finds the first of your hip half squads.
Yeah.
So you roll for Panzerfaust. You have one, and then you get double 6. So double 6 for the guy is unfortunately a cash reduction and a miss on the hit. So pretty bad luck for you. So the tank's left to come back on again and to take a look at your gun.
Yeah.
Another double 6 from you. kills the crew. So you're having absolutely no luck this turn. So it leaves the door open really for the crocodiles to come flying in. They get their 16 flat shots. And so we don't have a huge effect there for the second one. But now we're just pushing forward. Now here's where this crazy half squad turns up. I think I tried to move in from U8.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
and you bounced me back, and we couldn't believe that I hadn't gone through T8, and that you hadn't shot at anything. Your fire discipline was amazing. So I pick up a couple more buildings. We pinned the guy here with the advancing fire shot, and so we're going to jump into close combat. And so we get another couple of CVP there from the half squad and the crew and the other half squad. So it's quite.
I was even thinking that the half squad may be able to even recapture a building later if the carrot continued to avoid him. And
I think that's what you were saying was potentially one of your plans as well, wasn't it? Was to think about if I'd gone straight past him.
Well, it wasn't my plan at setting up, but it was my plan when you so sort of clearly missed him. In that turn when you were almost certain that you would move into that hex. Yeah. Right.
Okay. So we've got I think it's 8 buildings now, and remembering there are only 18 on this side of the board, so 4 that aren't owned means that it's basically 10-8 in terms of buildings. And the British are obviously going to get some more. So onto the German turn 4.
Is this where I'm bringing the tanks on?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So you've got to bring them on a road hex here.
That's right.
So you're thinking about here and here.
So I'm thinking of just jumping out and claiming buildings. That's all I'm thinking about here.
Yeah. I can't help thinking that's not what the scenario designer planned for these tanks, but...
I suspect it, but that's the weakness, I think, of the setup. Really, kind of forces me to sort of think like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, you're very cautious with your tanks as they're going to come on. So we've got a little bit of prep fire here. The 9-2 repositions was a bit skulking, and then the tanks are coming on here. I don't get the shot off. There's a block line of sight, and your intentions are clear. You're gonna dismount, or you're gonna unload your abandon your vehicles. You're gonna capture a couple of buildings, and that's not terrible. That's not a terrible idea. The only question I thought was, okay, well, am I going to be able to get a tank over there and shoot it whilst it's abandoned? That was my my idea. So finally, I bring the OBA over to your guys here. Now you're you're unconcealed and you're in the woods. It's the perfect spot, really. Of course, it's accurate, so it's a pretty grim for you there.
But it was only a spotting round, wasn't it?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. 88 does nothing again.
Yeah, that's right. I swing the turret back round again as I can't see here, just to acquire this hex. You do a little bit of, so you're pulling back here. Trying to, and these aren't particularly strong here. I've deployed with a view to potentially grabbing the gun for some extra points. You've got these 2 squads that are coming back with the leader that's broken still there. So not disastrous. It's just that they've got a couple of crocodiles kind of swimming around there. So okay, let's so at this point now let's hear what Tom has got to say.
Absolutely.
Well, that was a turn to try men's souls, as Martin just kept on getting served a crap sandwich by the ASL dice gods. Martin, if you're out there, I am virtually reaching across the Atlantic and giving you a hug because, damn, that sucked. Feels like the Germans are teetering, and one more bad break could cause them to throw in the towel, and I completely understand why. With the VC so dependent on building control, the Germans are running out of infantry to control buildings with, and I just don't know if they can survive too many more bad breaks. Martin's got to feel good about placing his hip half squad in 24I7 right where he'd get a great shot at an adjacent Crocodile, but Martin, note to self, rolling boxcars, never a prescription for ASL success. And heck, even when that leader managed to Faust the tank in 24R2, he died eating the backblast. Now, it was good of Dave to keep up the pace of the attack and go after both of the 88s on this player turn before the German reinforcements came on board. And it's always entertaining to see one of the great moments in ASL, one of the great moments of tension. I mean, when a tank comes at an anti-tank gun from outside of its covered arc, and we got to see two of those moments here in this player turn. Certainly the German leader's moment of Panzerfaust's glory showed why it's good to have infantry around to support in those situations. But the other 88 in 2406 didn't have that kind of support and paid the price. I actually found myself wondering why it didn't pivot to fire at the Crocodile as soon as it came into line of sight, but I kind of think it would have lost the gun duel in that situation because it was pivoting 2 hex spines, and it's the double case A penalty for doing so. Even though the flamethrower doesn't normally use to hit procedures, the gun duel rules do say that in that situation you would assume that it did have a to hit roll to do, but even at that, I think Dave's to hit case A modifiers and all of that would have, fire-based modifiers would have come out to be something probably like a +4, and that certainly would have beaten what the 88 had as it was pivoting. So I don't think that 88 had much of a chance. So always tough to see that happening. I am a little more certain, though, that the 548 in Q6, 24Q6, should have tried to Faust that second Crocodile as it came within 2 hex range. Admittedly, it was a lowish odds thing. You'd need a 4 or less to have a Faust, and then a to hit of 5 if you were eating the backblast. So just like a net 18% chance of success. But, you know, at this point, I don't think the Germans can be picky, especially when you have a chance to bag a Crocodile. But hey, I understand how these things go. When life is handing you a whole bunch of crap, then it's easy to just not take all of those chances. So I understand how it goes for you, Martin, there. I was mind blown about that second German hip half squad hiding out in the orchard in T8. I had to email Dave and ask him if that was some kind of brain fart on Martin's part. But actually, it was some of the most amazing fire discipline we've ever seen. So kudos to Martin for being able to lay low while half the British Army passed on by. I know I would have lost my nerve at some point and taken a shot. And in truth, you know, I think as the entire British Army went by, the odds of him getting discovered and dying before he got anything for his efforts were increasing. So I probably would have taken a shot somewhere along the line and just tried to get whatever I could out of this situation, especially when that tank rumbled by adjacent. I think that might have been my tipping point at least. But, you know, full marks to Martin for being a crafty bugger. And honestly, those are the kind of things you remember your opponent's capable of in when you play the next game. Like, damn, I remember when he just stood by and laid low. So it's a data point for future games, that's for sure.
Right, excellent. So, yeah, he's got your number there, Martin. He knows you're a crafty bugger. Yeah, I mean, it was... do you regret not taking the shot against the Cromwell there, or what do you?
The problem is that you've got haven't got an against the Cromwell. Yeah, you haven't got a phenomenally good chance of destroying it. And the gun had it, didn't it? But of course, if I'd have taken it with a Panzerfaust, I could have kept the gun hit for another turn.
Right.
So I suppose it would have been worth it if I'd have killed your tank. But chances are I wouldn't have killed your tank, because you've got to get one. Which he's right, it's 45, so it would have been on a 3.
Right.
And then you're 10, 8, 6, 4, 5 because you're large. Yeah, so you're 5 to hit. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it would have been a good idea. It's certainly possible to get a 5, isn't it? It's not the.
Yeah, it always feels like a real double killer to lose your hip guy and not to get a chance of like any kind of ambush or any kind of shot out there.
But I think I was hoping that something even more certain would come along, because you would have absolutely no suspicion that there'd be a unit there.
Right.
And worst came to worst, you'd pass. Well, not quite the worst, but you might pass completely over, and I just get a building back.
Yeah.
And that's almost as good as destroying a tank.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, definitely.
There we go. Anyway, it's falling apart for me here. I was very aware of that.
Well, yeah. I mean, turn 5. Here we go. So we're gonna roll through this. We take some shots against the anti-tank gun. Nothing going on there. We have, I think that was from the mortar. Then we get the Crocodile in to sort out this guy here, which Crocodiles does what the Crocodile should do. We grab the 88 gun, which is a whole load of extra points.
That's right. The points are really mounting up now.
Yeah, exactly. We then roll the second Crocodile in to try and take a look at this gun. Now you go for the Panzerfaust attempt here with the crew, rather than spinning the gun around.
Yes, that's right. No, I think that's the best chance, because you've got a huge penalty for turning that gun.
Right.
And I suppose there is a chance of keeping rate of fire, or 1 in 6 chance of keeping rate of fire.
But I'm not going to stop the tank. You're not going to get that second shot, are you? You're not going to get that intensive fire shot.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, and you pass the morale check though, so the tank gets out of the way. We swarm this guy. You break the first squad. Smoke the machine gun nest, and then I'm going to go up and just try and keep you honest up here. So the idea here is, if you do want to jump out of your tank, I'm going to come and shoot your tank.
Absolutely.
The 9-1 gets in position for a close combat against the crew. You take the good shot out of the smoke with the 9-2.
Yes.
I always think that machine gun nests in smoke are basically useless. And they never are if they've got a -2 leader.
Not with a -2 leader, no.
And moving in the open, or moving non-assault moving. So I kind of swing past to try and get the other 9-1 involved, and just start to try and tighten the noose a little bit on the machine gun. A little bit of routing. You fail to route, and so there's some surrenders going on here, and the surrenders are really going to cost you now in terms of victory points as well.
Points, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So at this point we stop really adding them up, but the the gun crew now is facing a 6 or 7 against 2, so 3 to 1 with a -1. So that's then taken. And then we see your turn here.
Yeah.
So you change your mind. You decide you're going to not go for the guns and not go for the buildings after all. So
that's
now,
right. I go for I can see 2 tanks that I could potentially wreck.
Right, exactly. So I spin the turret to try and take the shot here. Miss the shot, and then go for an intensive fire shot here. I think mouth the gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and suddenly...
I'm trying to get you in some sort of a skewer here,
Yeah.
I think. Is that what they call it in chess?
Yeah, you can have a skewer or a fork. Yeah, skewers.
Yeah, one of those.
Yeah, so at this point now, I'm just going to drop the OBA onto the tank, just feeling, well, okay,
Yeah.
I've got some kind of semblance of control there.
I go for that little close combat. I wasn't sure why you moved the half squad in. I thought he was inevitably just going to get...
It was okay, so the reason I did this was because if you did come in here as a close combat, I felt that I'd have a better shot against you if you're going to sit in this hex here.
Makes sense, yeah.
Against, I've got the...
It was a bait. It was a bait.
Yeah, kind of. And I think, I can either sit back and do nothing, or I've got to just, and now I appreciate that, a 3-1 with -2 on the close combat, I'm never going to win it. But, there's always the chance. There's always the chance of getting the tank low just to break that spot wide open.
Yeah, of course.
But it's not, it's definitely kind of throwing away a half squad, I think. But it does pull you into this kind of area.
Yeah. But you've completely overrun the sort of middle part of the town now, haven't you?
That's right, yeah. So now pretty much I've got most of the buildings that I was going to set out to get. We'll flip through to the end.
Oh, our leader goes heroic, which was interesting.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, here. And you destroy my pier, don't you? You take the squad to destroy the pier rather than to fire it.
Yeah.
So I move the tank around. I'm going to now do what you ended up wanting to do. And there's a... now, what's the double one from there? I don't think there was anything particularly special. I don't think anything amazing happened there.
Yeah.
Oh, I think was it the 88? I can't remember what it was that...
Oh, yeah, it might have been that you were firing the 88. That's a possibility.
Yeah.
But even with all the modifiers you have when you've got an unqualified foreign crew on the gun, I think even a double one's not always good enough.
There's the...
That was a key break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although there's a good chance they'll come back.
Yeah.
Just all like moving in on me here.
Yeah.
The tank's gone, hasn't it? The tank in P8 to take out.
That's right. Yeah, you've knocked that tank out. But at this point, we're looking at the game, and you've got one good order squad here in K1. You've got one in 010.
2 good order squads, basically.
Yeah, and the number of buildings that I've got now means that actually you've got to go on the attack. And so
and the tanks are doing reasonable. My tank's doing reasonably good work, but they can't win the game now.
That's right. So we call it here as a British win.
Yes, exactly.
So,
and I think one of the things that really made a big difference actually was the massive amount of points from the prisoners.
Yes.
Losing them's bad enough, but having them count double to see people means every squad's the equivalent of another building, isn't it?
Yeah. So did we say it was something like 70 points to 45 or 48 points? Was it something like this at this point? I think we counted up as. Let's see what Tom says for the end of the game.
That'd be great.
And that's a wrap. I think if you're looking at lessons learned from this scenario, it's an example of what happens when the defense is inherently fragile. Here the Germans only have 9 squads to cover a pretty long front, and what can often happen is that little cracks start to show up, places where a unit didn't get to reposition because they pinned somewhere inconvenient, or a squad failed to rally, or a support weapon malfunctioned, or somebody had to go CX just to avoid being fired on, or a sniper came out of nowhere and threw a spanner in the works, as they say. Then the attacker starts to pry open those little cracks into big cracks, and soon enough you've got tanks coming at you from outside your guns-covered arcs, and the floodgates open because of a timely snake eyes or boxcars. I've certainly been there myself, and I know how hard it is to keep one's head and play a steady game when you're playing from behind, as it were. You need to take more risks to get back into the game, but your risk assessment apparatus starts feeling pretty scorched around the edges because of everything that's happened so far. It's probably one of the most mentally and emotionally challenging aspects of the game. And I certainly appreciate Martin's predicament as things started to get dim and then dimmer and finally fading to black. Aside from that, I had a really great time nitpicking Dave and Martin's every move. I find I'm a natural at finding the flaws in others, and I hope they keep me around for future shamings. Dave, I'll have my barrister ring you up and we can talk about all those pences I'm due, okay? Thanks. Tom out.
Excellent. So yeah, I mean, good stuff, Tom. Probably the best part of that was Tom's commentary. I'm enjoying learning more from him. I mean, it's a good scenario. It wasn't as good as I remembered it from my first ever play-ins. I don't know why. You can kind of see it was a fairly underwhelming scenario, I think.
I think definitely coloured by the you personally, but how early on you played that scenario. But I think it has got a lot still going for it. I mean, that sort of combined arms element, I think, is really interesting.
Yep.
I think that I made some key mistakes, and I think that perhaps detracted from it being as competitive a game as it could have been.
Right.
I don't think it's a bad scenario at all.
Sure. No. I absolutely agree. And I think there is a feelings that it's pro-British. I need to check again. I seem to remember that there is like kind of a slow feeling that it might be a little bit unbalanced these days. And usually older scenarios, tend to now favour the attacker because of the more aggressive play that people kind of the style.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, that was good fun, and we had a good time. So that was the main thing. So going back to what's going on, we have our tournament coming up with our patrons. Timely reminder to say thank you to our newest patron, Jerry Proudfoot. Welcome, Jerry. So Jerry is in the tournament.
And we already have quite a number of people. Is that right? Signed up?
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. We've got a minimum of 8 have signed up now for it. Tom Rapetti is going to be in there as well. We've got Rob McGinley. Indy's going to be in there. So we've got all our.
I believe Indy isn't going to be able to make it. I just got an email this morning saying that he's got to go back to work.
Oh right, okay.
We'll check that, but I think that's what I read.
Oh right, okay then. Wow, news off the press. Yes. Indy out of the tournament. All right, but anyway, we've got plenty in there, so I'm fingers crossed that we'll get a few more. So if you do want to be in the tournament, if you had an invite, don't forget to send us a note confirming that you want to be in. We're going to send out first round pairings next week. It's going to be Totsugeki. We're all going to play. We're all going to play the same scenario. Martin, you're going to do the draw. You're going to do the pairings. That's your job.
And we can do that in next week's Illuminating Rounds.
Yeah, we can do it live if you want to do it live.
Well, we'll see. I guess we might just see. It depends on timing a little bit, doesn't it?
Okay. All right. No worries. Well, you'll certainly read out the pairings if you want to, and we'll figure out who's playing it. We'll try and keep everyone in time zones, and also there's a couple of players that would like to play by mail, so we'll pair those up certainly for the first round at least.
Yeah. So what's happening in our next Illuminating Rounds then?
Well, I guess it's going to be. We'll start talking about maybe Donant. I wouldn't mind doing that. Otherwise, any suggestions from you?
No, not really. But we're going to play the campaign, aren't we? That's the kind of key thing. And so next week we're going to be busy playing rather than recording, perhaps.
Yep, that's right. Yep. Yeah, exactly. So we'll certainly put together the first days, and maybe we'll do it break up into a few episodes and maybe spread it out across.
That might make sense
across things. I guess other than thanking Tom and Toby for all their inputs, Martin, anything else that you need to say or?
Not at all. Apart from thanks to everyone listening in.
Yep. Stay safe, everybody.
Yeah.
And all right, thanks very much for the game, Martin. Enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.
Bye bye.
All right, bye bye.